How did you go about coping with the closure of the Suez Canal? How did that hit you operationally? What was the communication process like with all the different partners internally, externally in that supply chain and your carriers? How did all of that proceed?
So we've taken that level of crisis management to the very senior management levels and all the way down to and including the individual planners, individual business units in the individual warehouses. We have mass communications that go on a daily basis. We have senior management communications that go on a weekly basis or more, as the case may be. The understanding, I think the COVID crisis is still fresh enough in the minds of most senior management that they know that now supply chains can be disrupted and it can happen quickly and it can have an impact and it's not your fault. Clearly, this is nobody's fault. It happens. And we're all, if you'll pardon the pun, in the same boat, no matter who we are, right? The big question on everyone's mind, and one that we're also wrestling with, is what is the impact? How long is this going to last? They're functions of each other, rather. The impact is a function of how long this is going to last. It's also a function of what happens to surcharges in general. Will they go up? Right now, I think they've found the right level. I think maybe the level is even a little bit higher than it should be, but I'll allow that equipment imbalances also need to be covered. I'd be very surprised if we saw surcharges labeled as such go up much more than they are now. I think they've found the right level. And so you can begin to quantify the impact in terms of, well, this trade is impacted, the surcharges is this, I have this many TEU, one multiplied by the other, multiplied by the number of months you think this is going to take, gives you a pretty decent answer of what's the impact. That's the easy part. The not so easy part is when you get down and deal with the individual planners, and this is not a Cummins thing, this is a manufacturing company thing, and they start going, well, what is the impact on our working capital of having to increase our inventory by up to 3 or 4 weeks? What is the impact on premium freight? How much will we have to move with premium freight options, be that rail, sea, air, or air, or courier? That's a sort of a how long is a piece of string type of question. It'll be what it'll be. We'll try and mitigate it. We'll do everything we can to avoid it, and we'll graduate our responses to shortages, right? Because I think in every manufacturing company I've ever worked for, or even with in my consulting capacity, up to a year ago, there's a tendency to reach immediately for the air freight lever. Unless you've got an adult in the room that says, Mr. Planner, you're right, you may need air freight, but can we have a conversation? When do you need this by? And you'll find that a lot of people pull the air freight lever because it won't get there quick enough with ocean freight, and that's a fact. But before you then pull the air freight lever, maybe you should ask yourself, is there a rail option? Is there a sea air option? Is there a deferred air option before you go automatically for the most expensive solution? So that process we're driving, a lot of companies are driving that, and those who aren't really should. So all of that is coming together in a quite a well-orchestrated global response, I think. So we have a number, which I'm also not going to give to you, right? It's a big
You
number.
can.
Yeah, I can, but I won't. It's a big number. I think they're all big numbers for most companies. They will be, because this caught everyone unawares. It's also not a crippling number. Okay. It's a number that in my mind is big, but in the context of our own internal risk management, the parameters should be classified as insignificant. It's clearly not operationally insignificant, but the impact is not so big that this will cause any alarm bells on the street or anywhere. It's a cost of doing business. And obviously, with the savings we've made on ocean freight over the last 12 months, there's some fat to give there as well, right? But people need to have that calculation ready. How long is it going to last? I don't know. I think rule number one in crisis management is to be prudent. I hate this death by 1,000 cuts approach to project management. You're afraid of giving people a big number, so you give them the lowest number you can get away with, and then you adjust it every week, upward, 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 upward. I'm a big fan of prudence in crisis management. What's the worst case, or what's maybe not the totally worst case, but what's a pretty bad case? And that number is worse than the number I have in front of me right now. But at least I think if anything, it'll come down as we progress into this crisis, right? That's the way we do it. I recommend it, and people buy it, as they should, that this is going to be with us through the middle of summer at the very least.
That's not necessarily the war itself. This is the knock-on effect of what's already happened.
before this irons itself out. So this may well end. It could end in 2 weeks if somebody invaded the Yemen, but nobody will, right? It could end in all kinds of ways. It could end within the next 3 months. But when the dust settles, ships will be in all the wrong places. Equipment will be in all the wrong places. It'll take time to reposition. In the meantime, customers have adjusted to new networks. Carriers need to dust off their old schedules and bring them back and bring assets back in line. Ships that have been cannibalized from smaller services to add vessels to the longer strings will have to come back to where they came from. That takes at least 3 months. So I'm thinking 6 months from now. And that's assuming it ends in 3.